In total, I have made 3 videos on my YouTube channel so far. The first one was a brief overview about who I am, and the other 2 were more about science. I feel it's necessary to make a video about my political beliefs, as well as explain why I'm not a huge fan of the Republican Party. I'm going to be talking about each major political issue today, and give my thoughts. Also, while I'm on the topic of politics, I've just made a Twitter account for the first time in my life. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I've got some support already from fellow Trump supporters. Follow me on there for political opinions, as well as daily biblical quotes. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. Issue 1. Abortion. I bring this issue up first because it might be the biggest no-brainer on the list. If you asked 300 million people whether or not they supported legalizing baby murder, it's sad to think about half would say yes. The United States right now is no better than Nazi Germany in my eyes. At least the Nazis gave the people they murdered a chance to earn their freedom. The baby murder that we are committing on a massive scale is disgusting. Now, liberals will usually tell you something like, if the mother was raped, it should be allowed, or if it is going to be deformed, that justifies euthanizing it. My response to these people is very simple. Doesn't every child deserve a chance at life? What does it matter if the child was conceived of rape? If you get raped, should we kill you? And this is actually not the position liberal Democrats have. They don't want to have abortion just for rape or incest. They want a woman to be allowed to do it just because the woman doesn't want the baby. They support late-term abortion all the way up until the very last second of birth. Even while the child is exiting the womb, they say it should be allowed because the child is dependent on the mother. Isn't every child? Should a mother be allowed to murder her 1-year-old baby? What about a 5-year-old, 15 years old? Heck, why not after they're 18? Most people over 18 still ask their parents for money in order to survive or go to college. Should the mother be allowed to murder her 30-year-old child because she's tired of buying them Christmas presents? Of course not. Issue 2. Death penalty. Now this issue is closely linked to abortion in my mind, even more so than healthcare. This is because the liberal Democrats' position on this shows the cognitive dissonance at play. They will spend hours arguing with conservatives about a woman's right to her own body, so baby murder should be allowed and performed by the state. But when you bring up the death penalty, they say they're against it. Why is this? They claim it's barbaric, amongst other reasons, as if committing genocide against tens of millions of unborn babies isn't barbaric. But I digress. I believe one of the main reasons that the liberal Democrats are against the death penalty is very simple. Now, it's easy to believe that liberal Democrats just want to defend murderers and terrorists, but I think the truth is much more sinister. I believe the reason liberals are against the death penalty is because when abortion becomes illegal, they don't want all the abortion doctors who have murdered all these babies to be executed. It takes a certain type of evil to kill a baby, so whenever they find someone who's willing to do such a thing, they want to keep them around. Issue 3. Gun control. So after the liberal Democrats have just finished murdering all the babies in America, they want to take away your guns so you won't stand up to their crimes against humanity. Our old friend Hitler did a similar thing in Nazi Germany, right before his genocide of 6 million Jews. I'll be reading a paragraph from an article called Gun Control in Nazi Germany. The link to this article will be in the description. By the end of March, Hitler had succeeded in passing the enabling law, which gave him the ability to create laws as he wished, with no requirement for consultation. Following this, the confiscation of weapons escalated. Municipal governments were informed that military weapons and ammunition had to be surrendered by the end of March. The Jews were targeted next, with a large raid in East Berlin on April 4, 1933. Jews were not forbidden to own firearms until 1938, but the air raid led to confiscations and arrest. The 1928 firearms laws were utilized to identify the so-called enemies of the state, locate them, interview them, and subsequently confiscate their weapons, thereby increasing Nazi control and eliminating private ownership of firearms from the majority of society. So as you can clearly see, the reason for gun control is so the liberal Democrats can take over the government with little resistance. Anybody that tries without a gun will be essentially executed, which is exactly what they want. Now, some liberal Democrats in the audience might be saying that they don't want to confiscate guns, they just want to make it more difficult for bad people to get them. But who are these bad people? Let's listen to a clip of gun control advocate Beto O'Rourke.
If the high-impact, high-velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that, so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children And in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15. And that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Thank you.
Crimea River. You can see that Beta O'Cuck is using an appeal to emotion fallacy. This is the definition I got from Wikipedia, and I will be leaving a link to this page down below. Appeal to emotion, or argumentum ad passionis, argument from passion, is a logical fallacy characterized by the manipulation of the recipient's emotions in order to win an argument, especially in the absence of factual evidence. This kind of appeal is an emotion to emotion is a type of red herring and encompasses several logical fallacies, including appeal to consequences, appeal to fear, appeal to flattery, appeal to pity, appeal to ridicule, appeal to spite, and wishful thinking. So as we can see, what Beta O'Cuck has done fits the description. Issue 4. Marijuana legalization. I believe I touched a little bit on this in my first video, but I will go into more detail here. One of the main motivations for the legalization of marijuana is to dumb the youth down, so the young people become so dumb that they accept liberalism with open arms, or if they don't, they won't be able to clearly articulate why they disagree. Thus, liberalism takes over the next generation and eventually all of society. I could go into detail about the harmful effects of marijuana, but I don't want to waste my time. A link to a list of the unintended consequences of legalizing marijuana will be in the description below. Before we move on, I want to quickly add the people who say alcohol is more dangerous, so why don't we make that illegal, are clearly in need of a history lesson. I would recommend looking at prohibition, seeing how that worked out. Issue 5. Body cameras. In the book 1984, George Orwell talks about the socialist liberal government of Oceania, known as Ingsoc. One of the main characteristics of this liberal utopia is the constant surveillance state. So it doesn't exactly surprise me that liberals would clamor for this mass surveillance state. But what does surprise me is the rationalization they give. They claim that police are so evil that they must have a camera attached to their bodies at all times, like a baby monitor next to a crib, to make sure they don't get into any trouble. Even when the police officers go into the bathroom, the liberal Democrats want the police to be able to not turn it off, or if they cover it up, they should be punished. Unlike the liberal Democrats, I trust police officers, and I think the claim that they are all evil is totally ridiculous. No police officer has ever shot somebody for no reason. That has never happened. And I know this because every time liberal Democrats cite a police shooting, when I look into it, I find that the person who was shot was either about to attack the police or had just committed a crime. Is it not unreasonable to assume that a criminal may be dangerous? Issue 6. Climate change. Climate change is not real. It's that simple. Mr. Trump made the right move by getting us out of the Paris Climate Agreement. It was a phony agreement and the other countries weren't even following it. Do I care about rising global temperatures and rising sea levels? Do I care about the increase of natural disasters like flooding and forest fires? Do I care about the millions of species of stupid bugs that are going extinct in the jungle? No, I don't. Why? Because even if any of those things are happening, which is highly unlikely, it doesn't matter. The Earth goes through cycles all the time, and this is no exception. So no, I don't think we should waste billions of dollars on a Green Deal to invest in solar and wind, when those things will never be able to produce the energy that we need. Issue 7. Vaccination. In the Bible, it talks about the mark of the beast. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bound, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads. Now you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with vaccines? And my answer is everything. If you look at it from the perspective of a modern Christian, how could this be achieved? Would everyone wake up one day with the mark on their hands? That's possible. But what is something everyone does, no matter small or great, rich or poor, or free or bound? I'll tell you. Vaccination. I suspect that the liberals will pass a law in the near future that requires everybody, even the people in power, to get vaccines. We can already see it being hinted at even today with this whole corona nonsense. Don't expect me to make a video on that. I don't want my channel to be taken down, but I will address it here. In this article by the Badger Herald, you can see that liberal Democrats are pushing for mandatory vaccination, and the only pushback is from the Republicans. I wouldn't expect the Republicans to put up much of a fight, however. I wouldn't be surprised if the bill passes with bipartisan consent. It's going to start with vaccines like this, and most people think we should get it because they've deluded themselves into thinking that it will cure their sickness. But eventually, they'll be putting trackers on every newborn so the next generation gets comfortable with the idea of constantly being tracked. That's one of the reasons they use mercury in these vaccines, so the blood can adjust to the presence of metal. Issue 8, welfare. So how do I feel about handouts to people who need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and get a job? I think they should get off the couch and get a life. I think that if they put any amount into getting a job, they wouldn't need to be living off public assistance. But a reasonable counter-argument might be, but what if there isn't enough jobs? And my response is this. Do I think that taxpayers should be required to help these losers by having their paychecks taken away? No, I think a better system would be everyone keeps their paychecks and they decide for themselves whether or not they want to give to charity. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, all these useless programs that incentivize laziness should be abolished. And as for the idea of universal basic income, I will be making a separate video about that, but don't expect it anytime soon. I have a long list of videos that I'm working on, and that one is closer to the bottom. But I think it's a terrible idea. Issue 9, minimum wage. Another welfare program that tries to disguise itself as business regulation. The Liberal Democrats want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is a terrible idea. I would like to read a couple of paragraphs from this article, The Unintended Consequences of Raising the Minimum Wage to $15. This article is amazing, and I will be leaving a link to it in the description. I really recommend this. You read this for yourselves. It puts this discussion into perspective. Raising the minimum wage has a number of serious and negative unintended consequences. Employers, especially small family and mid-sized businesses, will be disproportionately hurt by the extra costs incurred. The local neighborhood stores and businesses with razor-thin profits will be forced to raise prices to make up for the additional labor cost. With the increased prices, customers may elect to take their business elsewhere. Losing customers means losing income, which could result in the business having to lay off workers. Large corporations with big budgets will weigh the increased labor costs and elect to invest in technology to displace workers. This trend will soon become prevalent in the food service industry, hospitality, retail, construction, and manufacturing. Amazon recently opened up several prototype Amazon Go stores that are self-described as a new kind of store, featuring the world's most advanced shopping technology. No lines, no checkout, just grab and go. Fast food chains and large department stores will follow suit and implement the self-service checkout to save cost. Corporate executives will recognize that the $15 per hour could be routinely raised, which they will weigh the future unknown costs associated with additional increases, coupled with the ever-increasing insurance costs, plus the time-consuming task of finding employees, training them, and dealing with turnover. It's easier and less expensive to have technology take over. The unintended consequences would be that there would be far fewer jobs available for those that need them most. With the best intentions, the $15 hourly wage can lull people into staying into a role for far too long. My nephew Matthew skipped college as he enjoyed the cash from working at a local deli. Living at home with a free room and board, he felt flush with money. 5 years later, he's in his late 20s, living in a new apartment with his boyfriend, and he suddenly realized that the money doesn't go so far, because he stayed at this minimum wage job too long. Matt's finding out that he's not very marketable. There isn't a huge demand for a high school educated person with very narrow food service experience. Living in a small town, if his pay was lower, it may have served as a motivation to seek out other work that offers future growth potential. Now I know that was a lot, but I felt like it was necessary, and I couldn't cut anything out. This article doesn't cover the effect it would have on inflation, but nevertheless, it's really good to read. I would recommend checking it out. Issue 10, healthcare. I'm sure it doesn't surprise anyone out there that the Liberal Democrats want to take over healthcare too. They want to kick off the millions of Americans that like their private insurance off of it. Hold on. Sorry, I just lost my place there for a second. And replace it with a government-run healthcare. They want to fire all the people that work in the private healthcare sector too. So when they can't find a new job, they'll get on public assistance and become lazy. They want to get rid of our options and force us all into one plan. And one last thing, I would like to ask any of the people in the audience that support this, Can you give me one example of the government doing something right? I'll wait. Hold on. Issue 11, college tuition. The reason the liberal government wants to take over private universities, similar to the reason they want to legalize marijuana. It's about educating the ignorant liberals they have converted so they can run the government and attempt to win arguments with their terrible logic, and not allowing admittance to conservatives so they appear to the world to be dumb. If the government takes over colleges, they're going to make the belief in communism mandatory in order to attend it. This is an elaborate ploy to disarm conservatives, literally and intellectually. Issue 12, trade. Donald Trump is the most intelligent president we have ever had. He understands that America is getting screwed over on trade, and that it has to stop. Mr. Trump got us out of TPP, which was good. That trade deal was terrible. He's currently renegotiating NAFTA to make it more fair for Americans and bring jobs back to the U.S. Although I will admit my position is a little more extreme than Mr. Trump's. He knows that if he said what I'm about to say, it would be political suicide, and he wouldn't be able to get reelected to keep America great. But I think in my heart, Mr. Trump agrees with me with what I'm about to say. America should impose a 100% tariff on all goods coming into the country. At first it would be bad, which is why he won't do it. People are dumb and would perceive the temporary economic downfall as a bad thing, rather than cleansing that this great country needs. We need to go cold turkey, and we need to stop allowing China to slowly take us over through economic warfare. Issue 13. Excuse me, I'm stumbling a lot. Issue 13, immigration. I won't lie. I was a little disappointed when we didn't get the wall in Mr. Trump's first term, but I'm also intelligent enough to realize that it wasn't his fault. It was the liberal Democrats' fault. But I firmly believe that if we decide to re-elect Donald Trump for President of the United States, we will get our wall. And Mexico is going to pay for it. America has threats coming in from every direction. Rapists and gang members from Mexico, drug lords from Colombia, and terrorists from the Middle East. So what do these liberal Democrats want to do about these threats? Do they want increased border security? Do they want any physical barrier between us and Mexico at all? No. In fact, they want to have open borders and abolish ICE, which protects our wonderful border. This is an article from the Washington Times that says Alexandria Ocasio-Sanchez calls for ICE abolishment. Quote, I don't think it can be reformed. So this isn't a straw man. This is what they say. As for I don't think it can be reformed, why does it need to be reformed? I think it does a fine job keeping us safe. Thank you very much. Wow, that was a lot to get through, but I still haven't talked about the main topic of this video. Why do I call myself conservative and not Republican? The reason is most Republicans are secretly liberal and vote on left-wing proposals all the time. In this article from Vox, you can see former Republican nominee and loser, Mitt Romney, be given praise for voting for the impeachment of our great president. This is why I self-identify as a conservative, and not a Republican. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe to my channel. It's been rough, but I've been able to upload daily for the past 4 days, and I intend to continue to do so. If anyone watched this video till the end, I really appreciate it. Thank you.